Hi guys, and welcome to today's launch of our new Click-on Cladding range. My name is Blake Proud, and I'm part of the business development team here at Sculptform, and we're joined today by some of the team from Clima. So we've got Stuart, who is the National Sales Manager. He's on the right-hand side for Clima. And then we're also joined by Jesse, Clima's building scientist, and he's in the middle of the screen. Thanks, guys. It's great to have those guys here. You'll be hearing a little bit from them a little bit later on today. So in terms of housekeeping, we anticipate today's presentation to go for roughly 50 minutes, and then there'll be a 10-minute question and answer session at the end. We're also utilizing an awesome platform called Livestorm. So for the people that haven't utilized Livestorm before, it's really great for user engagement. There's a chat box on the right-hand side. So I encourage you to say, hey, let us know where you're tuning in from. We've got quite a few people tuning in from overseas. And there's also a few Sculptform representatives monitoring that chat, and occasionally they'll throw a message in there as well. On top of that, on top of the chat box, there's a questions tab. So as we work through today's presentation, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, we encourage you to list them in that questions tab and just make a note on who you're directing them to. So I suggest if you want to direct it to the Clima team, maybe just add a P to the question, and then just chuck an S in there for if you want someone from Sculptform to answer that as well. Now, I just want to say a very warm welcome to all of our attendees today. We've had close to 500 registrants, which is awesome to see. And the really cool thing is about 30% of those are tuning in from an international location. And I think it really highlights the fact that the challenges we're going to discuss relating to facade build-out design aren't just localized to Australia, they're relevant on a global scale as well. So for all the people tuning in from those weird and wacky time zones, we appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to join us, and hopefully you find today helpful. So just really quickly, for those of you that haven't worked with us before, here at Sculptform, we're a feature lining system manufacturer, and we work with both designers and main contractors across the world to really bring designs to life. We're actually really inspired by the direction that architects and designers take our product and the way they push our capabilities and our product's capabilities. And our main focus as an organization is really on bridging the gap between beautiful designs and buildable solutions. So we'll get on board early during the earlier stages of conceptualization. We'll workshop the design, we'll collaborate with the architect, and then we'll follow it all the way through, ensuring that the design intent is honored and what the guys on site are installing is super easy to install. It'll generally utilize some kind of click-on connection, which is kind of the bread and butter of who we are at Sculptform. And it's actually why we're really here today. So we were really challenged by architects to develop a solution that was aimed at meeting the ever-increasing need for fire compliance on projects, and as well as developing a system that was incredibly durable and super easy to install and super easy to detail. And since that challenge was put forward to us, we've been on an incredible journey, and we're really enjoying what we're learning, especially in relation to facades and the complexity around facade build out. We're also joined, as I mentioned, by Stuart and Jesse from Clima, and we're super excited to have those guys here. It was actually about the start of the year when we first started exploring the facade market and learning more about some of the common challenges in facade design. And we reached out to Clima, and those guys are really the building envelope experts. And since we reached out to them, they've been nothing short of exceptional in providing us they've been educating us around facade build out, and they've provided some recommendations around best practices for facade build out design. And I think that's where our two companies really synergize quite nicely. We're both really interested in the best practice design, and I think that's why we've partnered up, and we're really excited for the future. So just really quickly to run through the agenda for today, we're going to open things up by exploring some of the common challenges faced when designing an external facade, or what's considered the envelope, the building envelope. So for the people here who haven't heard that terminology before, the envelope refers to kind of what encapsulates the building and what protects the building as a whole. So we'll talk about some of the common challenges there. We'll also introduce you to our new Click-on Cladding product, which is what today is all about. We'll highlight how it's a rainscreen product and some of the benefits of the rainscreen product in facade build-out design. And then we've got actually two series of Click-on Cladding. We've got series 1, which we'll talk about briefly, and then we'll introduce you guys to Series 2, which is really why we're all here today and super excited to launch that to the market. And then once that's done, I'll throw you guys over to the Pro Clima team, and they're experts in their field. So I encourage you guys to bring a notebook along and really pay attention as they work through their stuff. And then once that's done, we'll open it up to a question and answer session. So don't forget, as you're working or as you're listening into today's presentation, any questions, we encourage you to chuck those in the question tab. Now, our original plan was actually to host this product launch in our Melbourne-based design studio. We were really excited to do that. We built a few sample boards and some life-size prototypes. We got the Pro Clima guys in to add a flexible membrane to that prototype as well. And our goal was that you'd be able to come in, you'd be able to see it, you could touch it, you could feel it, you'd really interact with the prototype. Now, it is kind of naturally the case these days, and just the way of the world. COVID's reared its head again, and we've dropped back to a webinar platform, which I guess it's not the end of the world. We get to open it up to quite a larger number, or quite a larger audience. So we've got people tuning in all across Australia and those international people as well. So that's exciting. I guess the main thing is we still wanted you guys to be able to see what the product looks like in the flesh. So we've taken a couple of pre-recorded videos, which I'll also sprinkle throughout today's presentation. And just in terms of key learnings, and these are three pivotal questions, especially if you're here today for a CPD point. So there is one formal CPD point attached to today's presentation. So when you leave today, we want you guys to be able to answer these three questions. The first one is, what are three things that you need to consider when you're designing a facade build out? What are some of the benefits of a rainscreen facade? And then what is the major advantage of utilizing a solid aluminium extrusion product as that rainscreen skin? And the wording there is super critical. So what is one of the major advantages of utilizing a solid aluminium extrusion? So in terms of challenges facing external facade design, so facade design is an incredibly complex process. There isn't really a one-stop shop that can supply every component you could possibly require to complete your building envelope from both a practical and aesthetic standpoint. So you're normally required to mix a mirage of different suppliers into the one building envelope, while at the same time you're ensuring that they're all working together to provide a fit-for-purpose solution. And I guess the biggest challenge with that is generally, like, a few of these guys will be competitors as well. So it's about getting a mirage of different stakeholders on the same bus, singing the same tune, and working towards the same goal, which can be quite complex. So I definitely feel for some architects there, and that's why it's important that you work with companies that are prepared to work with other people as well. And an example of that is Pro Clima working with us quite closely in the design of our product and our rainscreen solution. So on top of that, there's quite a few challenges that are dynamic, and they're kind of changing all the time. So regulatory oversight is probably one such example. Never has there been so many eyes on construction sites, and there's basically a mirage of different regulations that you're now required to adhere to as well. And it must be tough from an architectural or design standpoint to kind of be over all of those different regulations. And that's where I think it's super critical that you guys you're engaging or you're talking to suppliers who are experts in their field. So those are the guys you go to for the in-depth knowledge relating to the regulations and the particular parts of the facade in this instance, and understanding each of those components. And this leads us into kind of one of the most talked about challenges facing external facade design, especially here in Victoria, and that's fire compliance. Now, fire compliance is it's a beast, and it's one of the #1 factors for that increased regulatory oversight I mentioned just before. And I'm sure everyone really remembers the Grenfell Tower project in London that caught flames in 2017. So there's some images of it there, which are quite distressing. Unfortunately, there was quite a number of people that lost their lives in this incident. And then there was also, a bit closer to home in Australia, there was also the La Crosse fire in Docklands, which happened a few years earlier. So both of these were actually due to cladding materials that were specified that were not actually fire compliant. Now, I think most people now know that there are a number of projects in Australia that had or still have non-compliant aluminium cladding on their facade. but I don't think the extent of it is truly really known. So the latest figure from Cladding Safety Victoria estimates that there's somewhere in the realm of over 4 million square meters of non-compliant cladding up on existing projects in Australia. That's 4 million, which is an astronomical number. The biggest challenge, though, is that these are materials that suppliers were telling everybody were non-combustible and met the Australian standards. And I think that's really crucial to highlight. And I think that it really places an emphasis on making sure if you're all looking after the design and specification, you're pairing with organizations that you trust and you know that they've got your back and that they understand the regulatory standards, and so that you guys are working together, because you're as a designer, you need to be over a large number of different factors. And this goes back to the comments on regulatory oversight. So it's about pairing with organizations that are experts in their field so that you can trust the advice that you're getting from them. And then the third consideration is thermal bridging. Now, I think thermal bridging is probably the forgotten child when it comes to the three. And I can't comment for builders, but I imagine a lot of that has to do with value management and the fact that thermal bridging is a small component of the build out that makes a really big difference, but it's really easy to value manage it off a project because it's not seen and the effects of it aren't really appreciated unless you're the end user. And I think it's important from a design and specification standpoint that you appreciate the role that thermal bridging plays, and you're considering it from the earliest stages of conceptualization, and then you're educating the parties that you're working with so that everyone else that you're working with understands that it's the role that it plays and that it's an important critical component of the facade build out. All right, now I want to get on to kind of the exciting stuff. So we've outlined some of the common challenges, and now I really want to talk about why we're really here today. So it's time to release our new Click-on Cladding range. And I'm going to kick things off by talking about our Series 1 profiles. So there's an important distinction there. We've got Series 1 and Series 2. So we're going to start by talking about Series 1, which have actually technically been on the market for a couple of months now. And it's what you can see just here. So we've got a Soffit. This is Follow Your Apartments in Doncaster, and an example of it's a 150 mil wide board with a black butt wood finish on it. So it is designed to mimic shiplap cladding, but meet Group 1 fire compliance. So Series 1 refers to, it's a range of flat or planar surface profiles that will traditionally have a shadow gap between each of the profiles, and they're designed to mimic shiplap cladding, and it's a Group 1 alternative. So this is really where we started with our cladding product, and that was a result of architects pushing us. They needed a Group 1 alternative to shiplap cladding. Unfortunately, the realities of regulations these days are really minimizing the chances that you can design with real timber unless your job has the budget for a fire performance solution. And so this is your option when you can't really utilize the timber that you want to on the project. Sorry, this is a Group 1 alternative. And what it did is it really opened our eyes to the world of cladding and the capabilities and advantages of using a solid aluminium extrusion over a roll form product. And I think that's really important to note there for the guys, especially for the CPD. So the advantages of a solid aluminium extruded product are that it's super rigid. That means it'll hold its shape. And that's important because it means we can create all kinds of different textured profiles, which is something that is basically the essence of Series 2, which we'll explore in a bit more depth shortly. And then the other major advantage is because it's an extruded aluminium product, it doesn't suffer from any of the effects of oil canning, which is a common sight on many clad projects currently out there in Australia. And so that's where the original flat cladding board has bubbled or rippled over its lifetime. And that's something that happens with roll form steel products, and it's something that won't happen with a solid alley extrusion. And then this is just an example of the componentry behind the product. So that's our mounting track. It's a Group 1 product, and it's in a river gum wood finish. So now I'll just play a real quick video. This one will go for about 4 minutes, and it's just exploring some of the componentry that makes up our Click-on Cladding. And
Hey guys,
you might get a
welcome.
pop-up to
This is
ask
our
for
new
sound
Click-on
permission.
Cladding
Just make
product
sure
that
you
I want
hit
to run through
yes.
today. So this is a really good example of a rainscreen facade, and we've designed this product from the ground up. We really wanted to give architects a flexible modular cladding solution so that they can design a facade that's unique to their product, but it's super easy to detail, it's super easy to specify, it's highly durable, and meets all of the regulatory standards. Our Click-on Cladding product consists of an aluminium extrusion at the front, and then it utilizes a clip-on fixing system rather than each board being individually screw fixed. So what this means for your product, or your project, is that it's designed to be super easy to install, super quick to install, reducing time on site. In this video, we're going to explore the componentry that makes up our Click-on Cladding product. And at the core of our product is our standard mounting track system, which utilizes the same clip that the industry has come to know and love. The really cool thing about these clips is they come factory fitted to suit the unique project requirements or the spacings of the profiles that you've chosen. So what that really means is that the majority of the labor intensive installation and set out process has already been completed prior to the materials arriving to site. And as we all know, in Australia especially in this day and age, the number one cost on a construction site is labor. So the more that you can reduce the labor cost, the lower your project cost is going to be overall. So that's where these clips coming factory fitted really comes into play. So from an installation point of view, the installer will get these tracks with the clips already factory fitted in place. They just need to fix these at various centers, depending on the wind load that the project is exposed to. And from there, they just need to make sure that all the clips line up perfectly straight and the cladding board just gets clipped on and clicks into place. Another major benefit of this product and its modularity is these aluminium cladding boards. So these aluminium cladding boards are available in a variety of different profiles, different textures, different shapes. They can be in a mirage of different finishes, and then you can actually mix and match them. So while we've got 120mm flute on show here, we've got a variety of different other flute widths that you can mix and match. You could even throw in a block profile if you wanted. And what that means from a design point of view is you can mix and match during the design process and you can create a facade that's truly unique to your project. The other major and core advantage is that this product has been designed from the ground up, and it's really been designed holistically. And what that means is that it extends to more than just some boards and fixings that you traditionally be able to get on the marketplace right now. It actually includes a full range of trims that have been designed to seamlessly integrate and synergize with the rest of your design philosophy. And that means that your facade design can be fully encapsulated from all aspects of it. So we've actually got a few examples of it on this prototype that I'd like to show you now. So in the corner here, we have a really great example of one of our many corner details. This is what we call the shadow gap corner profile. And this has been designed to mimic the shadow gaps that you see between each of our fluted profiles. So as you cast your eyes across the facade, you're reading the shadow gaps and it hits the corner. It's a block profile with a shadow gap. So that design philosophy is mimicked and it's honored so that your eyes cast over onto the next face of the facade. Now the trims that you see on this prototype are entirely specific to this range of profiles that have a shadow gap. We have a variety of different trims that we've designed to be part of our different systems. And those are all available on our website, so I encourage you to give those a look, because that's one of the core advantages of utilizing a proprietary system. All those trims are designed to work harmlessly with the rest of the facade. That's the basic overview of our new Click-on Cladding product. Stay tuned, we've got a few more videos coming. We'll be exploring the advantages of utilizing an extruded aluminium product. And we'll also be talking a little bit about build out and designing build out and what you need to consider to ensure long-term project success. And for anyone who's really interested about seeing any of these prototypes that we're showcasing in the flesh, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Apologies. Thanks, Jesse. That was just a video exploring some of the componentry that makes up our Click-on Cladding product and the mounting track and the clip fixing system. And then just really quickly, this is just a range of the Series 1 profiles we have available. So there is, on the left-hand side, the Group 1 alternative to shiplap cladding are our flat planar profiles. So there's a 75 wide option, 150 wide option, and a 300 option. And again, it's important to note that you can mix and match those as well. So you could combine a couple of 300 wide ones with a 75 or throw in a 150 there as well. And on the right-hand side, we've got a couple of different flute options as well. So 75 orientation, 150 wide, and then a smaller double flute as well. I think at this point, it's probably really critical that we highlight that our Click-on Cladding product is 100% designed to be a rain screen facade. So along with the roof, the facade is probably one of the most critical elements when it comes to protecting the building. It acts as the primary barrier against harsh weather elements such as rain, snow, frost, and the temperature and that kind of thing. And while its primary function is fundamentally to protect the building, it also acts as the outer skin of the building. So it's the first thing that a person's going to see when they look at a building, and often they'll have sentimental value attached to kind of what the building looks like as well. So what we're really seeing, especially here in Australia, is that rain screens are becoming more and more popular, and they're an efficient way to protect a building, especially when it comes to meeting the increasingly stringent levels of regulatory oversight that we talked about earlier. So the reason reason rain screens are becoming popular, they're basically a form of double wall construction that utilize an outer layer. So in this example, our cladding product, and that really shields the build out and the building from rain, and there's a cavity in there that allows for drainage and evaporation. And then behind that, there's an inner layer that provides a level of thermal insulation, and weather resistant barriers are in that inner layer as well. So a typical rain screen is made up of the following componentry. There's generally cladding at the front. So that acts as kind of the first line of defense. Then there'll be a vented airspace behind that, and that allows for drainage and evaporation. And then there'll be some levels of insulation. So there'll be perhaps something specified to deal with thermal, like as a thermal break strip, or a thermal barrier, and then some kind of weather resistant barrier as well, which is really where the Pro Clima team come into play. And then finally, there's the structural wall of the building, which they're all kind of there to protect. So rain screens they're an excellent solution from a practical standpoint, as they present excellent value while also being durable. They're energy efficient. They're a low maintenance solution, and they help to reduce condensation and humidity. However, probably the major benefit is actually in the double wall construction method. So the bulk of the weatherproofing and the heavy lifting is done behind that outer layer, that outer skin. And that means it's away from the eyes of the public. And so as such, the focus now basically on those components terms is no longer around design aesthetics, but it's fundamentally comes down to kind of pragmatic functionality, making sure that what you've got behind that outer skin is 100% compliant and it's fit for purpose. And then that leaves you guys as architects and designers greater freedom in the expression or the design intent that you can follow with that outer skin as well. All right, so this takes us to that's basically series 1 and the componentry, and this takes us on to Click-on Cladding series 2, and it's the reason we're really all here today, and we're super excited to release these profiles to the market. But basically, so just to reiterate or recap, series 1, we were pushed by architects to come up with a group 1 alternative to real timber shiplap style cladding. And then when we released that onto the market, there was quite a lot of responses about, hey, this is super cool, but we want something with a bit more oomph or a bit more texture. And at the same time, we were learning about some of the benefits of a solid aluminium extrusion and that it's rigid and it holds its shape. And that's where we've come up with the Series 2 profile range, which is all about creating rich 3D textures. So profiles that have that oomph, that can add depth to the facade. So the first one I want to release is it's our Edge series. Now there's a few products on the market that are actually quite similar to this. There's standing seam profiles, and there's kind of 2 options you can go down when it comes to standing seam. There's the zinc materials standing seam, which, full disclosure, I think looks incredible. I've driven past a number of projects that have been completed in the zinc material, and it looks great. Its kind of drawback is that it's just super, super pricey. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got the roll form steel products as well, which they're definitely quite a lot cheaper, a lot more commercially viable, but generally they don't have the structure or rigidity. So you often have to add some kind of rigid backing in behind to give them the support. And that generally comes at the consequence of fire compliance. And this is also, so the Edge series range is available in a variety of different widths. So there's 120 mil wide, 180 wide, and a 300 wide. And again, modularity is at play, so you can mix and match those as well. The next one I want to release is actually on the left-hand side. So it's a 300 wide. We're calling it the Fine Line series. And it's all about reducing that shadow gap that was in Series 1. So Series 1 profiles typically had a 3 to 4 mil shadow gap between each of the boards. This Fine Line series is aimed at going for like more the modern, the sleek look, where it's just like a really small hairline join that you see. 300 wide is basically pushing the boundaries of what you can achieve in an extrusion. But in essence, the Fine Line is about you're able to cast your eye across the facade and you really don't read the joins. And then we've got an example on the right-hand side of the modularity where we're combining some standing seam profiles with the Fine Line series. And then we've got a render just here. So on the left-hand side, there's an example of what the Fine Line looks like. And then just above it on the left-hand side, you've got the Fine Line mixing and matching with some of the Edge series. And then just a comparison photo to an aluminium composite panel. So an ACP panel is in the middle on the right-hand side. And it's just showing the kind of how the two compare. And with the Fine Line series, we feel as an organization, you're getting a lot sleeker of a look. It's a lot more modern, especially in that's a really nice anodized finish there. We think it looks fantastic. The next one, this one I think really answers a need within the community. So this is our stepping block range, and it's available in 2 different orientations. And this is where we're really pulling on the kind of the strengths of the solid alley extrusion and creating the textured profiles. So this is basically mimicking the design philosophy, or if you wanted a decorative batten look on your facade. So right now, I'll give you a really great example where, let's say you were building a project and you wanted a 50 mil click-on batten. So the product that we've had available on the market for a number of years, you wanted a 50 mil alley batten with a 50 mil gap, so equal batten and spacing across your facade. Up until today, you would have had to traditionally design your facade, design the complete build out, put some kind of rainscreen skin in there, so something like an FC sheet, and then you would come along with a decorative batten and connect it to the face of that rainscreen. So now with this one, the beauty is that it's a solid aluminum extrusion, one single extrusion. So the substrate color matches the color of the batten, which is a huge tick and something that we get asked for a lot. You're not going to see any horizontal mounting members or supports or anything like that. But the kind of the really cool thing is that you're combining the decorative element of the batten with the practicalities of the rainscreen skin. And so what that means is you're reducing one layer in the build out. So when we talked about getting people on the bus and singing the same tune, you're effectively removing one player, or you're removing one step in the process, which means less time on site, less supply costs, easier to install and quicker to install. And that's available in the 2 different orientations. So 50 mil block or a 25 mil block. And then this is just a recap of kind of what we've got in Series 2 at the moment. This range will definitely be expanded over time. We can do quite a bit with those solid aluminum extrusions, but this is what we're releasing today. So on the left-hand side, we've got the 3 different widths of the Edge series. It's 120 mil wide, 180, and a 300 wide. On the bottom right-hand side, we have the 300 mil Fine Line series. So that's getting as wide as you possibly can, so that it looks really flat and you don't really read too many joins. In the middle, we've got the fluted range. So there's 120 mil wide. That's the one you saw on the prototype video. And there's a 75 mil wide orientation as well. At this point, you might be asking, what's the biggest difference between Series 1 and Series 2 when it comes to the flutes? And it's actually the depth of the scallop. So this goes back to, again, being pushed for a little bit more oomph, a little bit more depth in the new profile range. So the depth of that scallop is really there, so you can see kind of the change in the profile. And then there's our 2 stepping block profiles. And it's important to note they're all designed to be proprietary systems, so they all come with their full range of trims that are designed to kind of seamlessly integrate and follow the same design philosophy. So those are all available on our website. I'll just play a really quick video that's going to explore just one common type of build out, and then I'll throw over to the Pro Clima team, to Stuart and Jesse, who'll talk a little bit more about kind of build out design and weather type systems as well.
Today we're looking at our new Click-on Cladding product, which is designed to be a rainscreen. And in this video specifically, we're going to explore the build out that goes into rainscreen design, and we're going to talk about why getting your build out is hypercritical to ensuring long-term project success. So there are 3 items that we think as architects and designers you need to consider from the earlier stages of conceptualization to ensure that long-term project success. So the first one is fire compliance, the second one is leaky building syndrome, and the third one is thermal bridging, or what's also commonly referred to as the effects of thermal transfer. So all 3 of these issues are critical issues faced on construction sites, not just here in Australia, but internationally as well. Now, this particular build out example is just one of many different build outs that you could have on a construction site. But this one in particular has a 90mm stud cavity that acts as the frame. Then there's insulation bats that are fitted between each of those cavities. As mentioned, there are a number of different factors that you need to consider when designing your facade build out. The first, and something that's actually causing a bit of stir across many construction sites in Australia and plenty of completed projects already, is fire compliance. The level of fire compliance that you need to adhere to is going to be dependent on a number of factors. And so these are largely determined by the size of the building, the type of the building, what that building is going to be used for. But when it comes to our aluminium Click-on Cladding product, it's designed to be a Group 1, 100% fire compliant solution. So that means no matter what the building type is, no matter what it's been used for, when you specify and detail a Click-on Cladding product from Sculptform, it's going to achieve the highest levels of fire compliance. The next biggest consideration is a huge issue known within the construction sector as leaky building syndrome. And leaky building syndrome, it can be a silent killer. Leaky building syndrome means when your facade build out or building envelope isn't 100% weather tight. So in order to understand that in a little bit more detail, you need to truly appreciate how a rainscreen facade works. So at a really base level, the aluminium Click-on Cladding product at the front just here is designed to protect the facade from the majority of external weather, but it's not going to be able to protect it from all the weather. There's still going to be a small amount of water or moisture that's going to get in behind the cavity, and it's going to sit in there and it's going to rest in there. And what can happen is, if this isn't weather tight behind there, that water can permeate through to areas of the facade that aren't necessarily set up to handle that weather. And when that happens, the effects of that can go undetermined for a significantly long amount of time. And when they come to fruition and you finally find out about them, the effects are already too late. It's catastrophic, not just aesthetically, but structurally as well. And so what we've done in this build out example is we've partnered with a company called Pro Clima. So what you're seeing here, this blue material, it's a weather resistive barrier. So what that does is any water or moisture that gets through, this flexible membrane is really gonna act as another layer of protection, ensuring that that water doesn't penetrate through to the facade itself. The third and other major consideration that we want to talk about are the effects of thermal transfer. So thermal transfer refers to when the external temperature outside penetrates through the componentry of the build out and really gets through to the other side of that facade. Now, unfortunately, and it might be due to time, it might be due to cost, the effects of thermal bridging really aren't considered. And we think here at Sculptform, we're all about best practice build out design. So what we've done today in this prototype is we've worked with a company called DC Tech, who provided us with these strips. These strips are referred to as thermal break strips. And what they do is they're protecting this metal stud cavity from the external temperature, and they're really delaying the effects of the thermal transfer or the temperature permeating through the metal stud cavity and getting to the facade behind. And consequently, that's improving what you might typically have heard about before, which is the R value of the project. Now, the requirements of each project are different. The type, size, and category of the building, as well as the different levels of weather that building is exposed to, or perhaps even the standard of building that you're trying to adhere to, all play an integral role in determining kind of the build out that you need to specify or what you need to work to and the componentry that you need to include. Here at Sculptform, we're all about best practice design, and while our product specifically is a rainscreen solution, so it's just the face of the build out, and there's a barrage of different stakeholders that you need to bring together to design a build out. We have partnered with a few different organizations and made some recommendations about what we consider to be best practice facade build out designs, and we put those on our website, so we encourage you to go on there and check those out. For anyone else who has any questions or would like to get in contact, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. I'll now throw you over to the Clima team, to Stuart and Jesse, who will run through a little bit about detailing and weather tightness and their kind of systems as well.
Thanks, Blake, and good afternoon, everyone. So my name's Stu, and I'm the National Sales Manager with Clima, and we've also got Jesse here, who's our Technical Manager and in-house building scientist. So Jesse's going to take you through a short presentation here, which just gives a bit of a background on Clima as an organisation, and goes into a bit more detail about our products and the importance of detailing in weatherproofing systems. So across to you, Jesse.
Thanks, Stu. Thanks, Blake. So I'm going to, basically extend on what Blake said, and the Clima performance systems, which is all about making the whole facade work as a system to achieve these weather-tight outcomes, which we all want to achieve, and how we're going to actually achieve that in practice. So just as a little background of who Clima is, started off in Germany in the 1980s, Mollbau Ökologische Produkte, which is essentially Clima was born out of the ecological building movement in Germany. And ecological building was all about using low embodied natural materials like wood fiber, and cellulose. The big problem with those materials is if they get wet or damp, then they start to go moldy and eventually rot. So Clima was invested in trying to ensure the longevity and the durability of those low embodied energy structures. And from that, it basically turns out the best way to do that is to make sure they're waterproof using weather resistive barriers on the outside of the structure, and possibly, if required to meet condensation requirements, use intelligent air barriers or smart vapor control layers on the inside of the insulation layer. And this ensures that you're protecting the structure from external water or rain ingress, as well as humidity from inside the building condensing within the structure. And this applies not just to natural based materials, but also to materials that are used in mainstream practice like steel structures, and ensuring that they don't corrode over time. So Sculptform has employed utilized the Solitex Extasana weather resistive barrier system. And I say system because it's not just the wrap itself, it is all the components that go with that. And one of the fundamental things about making a rain screen work is to have good pressure, what's known as pressure equalization in the system. That means that the weather resistive barrier system should be very wind tight. And the more wind tight it is, the more watertight it is. And to get it wind tight, you need to use good quality sealing technology and adhesion technology. And that's what Clima offers in Australia, which is best in class in terms of the adhesion technology on our taping systems and our adhesion products. So this is about sealing the lap joints in the weather resistive barrier to get the best outcome. So Clima is working with Sculptform on, I guess, what you would call a low to mid pressure system in terms of utilizing the Solitex Extasana weather resistive barrier system. So that will take you to a certain point, and you can use that flexible membrane, but when the wind pressures start to get higher, then you're going to need to transition to rigid weather resistive barrier systems. And that's when the likes of Cineart Weather Defense come in. But really, making either the flexible membrane systems wind tight and therefore watertight, or the rigid systems, requires to have good seals on the joints and junctions in those systems. And that's where the taping technology used in the Tescon Extoria is best in class and will provide those outcomes that we're looking for. So Clima is basically, as far as I'm aware, lead in the market in terms of the highest pressure rating achieved in a facade system for a flexible membrane. And this is just a test that we've undertaken at a test lab for a cladding supplier, and we achieved up to or in excess of 2 kilopascal serviceability limit. So in case you don't know what that means, that's very good result in terms of wind pressure and maintaining water holdout at that 2 kilopascal limit for a flexible membrane system. And this comes back down to detailing, and this is our in-house installation expert or master carpenter, Daniel Jacobs, who is looking at and installing all those details necessary to achieve those outcomes. So in terms of delivering watertight facades, watertight buildings, it comes down to having the quality details, so the design phase and the good guidance around that, as well as quality products which are durable and will maintain a long lifetime and maintain that water holdout for the life of the building, as well as quality workmanship. And quality workmanship can always be the main failing point in any facade system and lead to leaky buildings, which is what Clima puts a lot of emphasis on. So talking about quality products, Clima utilizes a technology in our membranes known as TEEE, and TEEE is a thermoplastic elastomer ether ester. And what this is the functional film used in our membranes. So it's protected on either side by polypropylene fleece, but the interlayer is essentially what does all the work. It does the heavy lifting in terms of water holdout and wind tightness and air tightness to maintain its fit for purpose function in the building envelope. So the TEEE technology, when you look at that on a micro scale, is what we call monolithic. It has no micropores in it, as opposed to other technologies on the market, which are called microporous membranes or microporous technology. And as you can see, the microporous technology is manufactured with the pores in there to enable vapor permeability in those functional films. The way water vapor transports through the different technologies is that in the microporous film, it happens through the pores in the film. In Clima TEEE technology, the water vapor is actually transported through the chemical structure or the chemical lattice in the TEEE polymer. Also, what this polymer technology does for us is it delivers excellent UV exposure and durability of our products. And that's what Clima is all about. And that's what water moisture management and water vapor management is all about. It's about long-term durability of our structures. So the polymer technology we use, engineered in Germany with highly intelligent chemists in Germany, enables us to achieve excellent ratings for UV exposure prior to cladding. So for all our core product range for roofs and walls, the UV exposure is 180 days. So you can leave it out for 6 months before you even clad the building. And that means it can still maintain its water holdout and be fit for purpose. Also, the technology used in the membranes enables us to achieve basically products that are suitable for these harsh Australian conditions which we're building in. And 120 degrees continuous operating temperature for our Solitex Extensana membrane is best in class, and that temperature means that you can use it behind any color cladding, and in particular highly conductive claddings like aluminium, which the temperature is of no concern when you get direct sun onto that cladding. So the long-term water holdout is also best in class in terms of the TEEE technology. So we've done some testing in Germany on behind roof claddings for 5 years with a TEEE technology and a microporous technology. What happens over time is potentially the microporous technology starts to become less of a water barrier, and after 5 years of aging, potentially the pores will start to allow water to drip through those products, as opposed to a monolithic technology, which you don't have those pores, which will eventually lead to water transfer. And lastly, quality workmanship. So ProClima is pretty big on this because we know that you can't just have good products, you need to have good workmanship. And this is where the skills training comes in. And this is also why we put a lot of effort into our guidance documentation and application details. So we have probably the most detailed application guides in the industry in terms of the weather resistive barriers. And this is to make sure or ensure that the systems are weatherproof, but particularly where you start interfacing into other cladding systems or dissimilar materials. And that's when you really need to have good workmanship and good detailing. And also we have Daniel Jacobs, who is our master carpenter and trainer, who's able to train on site and train the facade application installation teams to enable excellent outcomes and ensure that those systems are installed properly for long-term durability. And that brings me to the conclusion of my presentation. And basically, ProClima is operating in Australia and New Zealand. We've been in New Zealand for a little bit longer and have a lot of expertise around, well, what's happened in New Zealand in the leaky building crisis, and also solutions to that, utilising good quality weather-resistive barrier systems.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, these guys, so for everyone listening today, ProClima are experts in this field. They just released a blue book as well, which, so for anyone that's interested in all things build out, definitely encourage you to, that's available on your website, isn't it, Jesse?
Yep. So that's downloadable from our website. I would just Google ProClima Blue Book and the link will come up.
It's pretty comprehensive. It's definitely some nice reading. So definitely get involved, download that if that's something you guys are interested in.
Thank you.
So we've got, give me one sec. Just All right, so we just heard from ProClima. I've just got one more quick video. It's going to go for about 4 minutes again. It's going to look at some of the samples in the flesh that we were really hoping we could share with everybody. And then we're going to open up to some questions. So I can see there's been a few that have been thrown in there. If anyone has any for the ProClima team, don't forget to just chuck a P on that as well so we can direct it to them. So one more video, then we'll recap the CPD questions and then open it up to the floor for some questions as well.
I'm super excited now to show you guys a few of our physical samples that we have here in our Melbourne Design Studio. So what we've got is a few of the different profiles available in our range and a few of the different finishes that you could expect on our cladding products. So over here on the right hand side we have it's our 75mm wide. It's actually a profile that's actually from our Series 1 range, and it's designed to mimic the effects of shiplap cladding, and it's got that shadow gap that you can come to expect from like a tongue and groove profile. And then it's in wood finish. Now it's in a wood finish river gum. Personally, river gum is one of my favorites. It's a chocolatey brown, has a lot of warmth through it, and does a great job of matching a spotted gum profile. Then if you jump over here, this is again the exact same sort of profile. It's a 75 wide, planar, flat surface, not much 3D element to it, but it does have a different kind of finish. So this one has a powder coat on it that's designed to mimic kind of what you'd expect from a Core 10 product. So those profiles just there are available in a 75mm wide orientation. They're also available in 150mm wide. And over here, you've got our 300mm wide. So you're getting really nice and big and thick. And what you can do, as we've talked about earlier, is that it's a modular system. So you can mix and match all those different profiles. And that allows you to create a facade that's truly unique to your project. So not only can you mix and match the sizes, you can also change up the finishes to add a bit of a dynamic design to your facade. If we jump over here, we've got two examples of our edge profile range. So this is designed to mimic a standing seam. It's worked on the golden ratio of kind of sizes and profile design with the edge component here, and then a flat surface. It's available in a variety of different widths. We've also got another example of it here and a lovely anodized finish. So these are just some of the examples of our profile range. And then just here, we've actually got, I'm pretty excited about this personally. This is just showcasing some of the advantages you get from working with and extruded aluminium product. So this one just here, we've had a little bit of fun. This is a 3D print that we're just mucking around with, but when you work with a 3D extrusion, it's really just about creating a die that'll then just extrude the aluminium. It's designed to integrate with all of our standard mounting tracks and clips, so it'll click on and be really easy to install, but you can create a texture or a profile that's truly unique to your project. And then we've got another example just here. This one is a little bit finer, but if you look down the plane, there's a little bit of a ripple on it as well. The final advantage that I really want to close out with is this product as a whole is really designed to incorporate a decorative element with the rainscreen facade. Now you might ask why that's important. The reason that's important is when you're combining a decorative element with the rainscreen component, if your design intent was always to have a decorative component to your facade, traditionally up until this point you would have to design a build out which had a rainscreen skin, and then you would add the decorative component to the face of that rainscreen. So what we're doing here specifically with these textured profiles as well is you're adding that decorative element to the rainscreen skin, and you're effectively eliminating a layer from the build out. So you're reducing time on site from an installation point of view, and you're reducing the overall costs. So these are just some of the examples that we have in our studio. If you'd like to check them out, please don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, so that's it in terms of content. So thank you very much for tuning in, guys. So just to recap really quickly on the CPD questions before we jump into a live Q&A session. For the CPD, there'll be a survey that'll get sent out after today's presentation. The questions are, what are the 3 things that you need to consider when designing a facade build out? So things like fire compliance, thermal bridging, leaky building syndrome are all super critical. Also, just what are the benefits of utilizing a rain-screen facade? So that's really that double wall construction method. And then what's the major advantage of using a solid aluminium extrusion product? And if anyone needs a hand with any of those CPD questions, if you want me to go over anything as well, my contact details will be at the end of today's presentation. So reach out to me and we can work through it together. So we'll now jump over to the Q&A, live Q&A. So thank you so much for listening to us so far and joining us today. If you've got any questions, chuck them in the questions tab. I'll just answer some really high level questions that have been asked a couple of times. So in terms of availability, this product it's released to the market. It's available now. You can order it now. It's on our website. The trims are all on the website. The profiles are on the website. There's a pricing guide you can download from the website, or our support team should be able to help you out with some pricing. I know a few people have mentioned they've had some challenges with pricing. Definitely, I'll put my email address at the end of today's presentation. Contact me directly and we'll get you that kind of stuff pretty quickly. In terms of finishes that are available, so there's the variety of different profiles. We can powder coat those any color from the Dulux or Interpon range. We can anodize them. We can also wood finish a lot of the ranges. There's a couple of them that we can't put a wood finish on, or we might be able to put it only on one face. But give us a call about that if that's something that you're looking at exploring. In terms of there was a question about flashings matching the product. Generally, you can powder coat or anodize a flashing to kind of match. That would generally be in maybe the scope of the actual install, or that's something we can work through. Wood finishing of the flashing may be a little bit cumbersome just because you have to fold up the material. And then I know you answered this one, Stuart, but we had a question about is the flexible membrane Group 1 compliant? I might get you to just answer that for the crowd if that's okay.
Yeah, sure thing. In 2019, the NCC introduced an update into the building code where membranes or sarking materials that are less than 1 millimeter thick are deemed as non-combustible, so long as they have a flammability index less than 5, according to the AS 1530 Part 2 fire test. And so, yes, X-Designer is less than 1 millimeter thick and has that fire test, so it's deemed as non-combustible.
Yeah, awesome. I guess there's another question as well, which was asked generally, but I think probably relates more to your flexible membrane, but it's about can the rain screen achieve total air tightness? And for reference, that's not where our cladding products would come into play. I think that's where you guys would step in with your product range.
Yeah, so that question in relation to the passive house standard. There's a certain air changes per hour target that you need to meet to get to passive house standard. I think it probably would be challenging just to do that with an external membrane system only. The product you can see sitting behind Jesse's head there, though, Intello, which is our internal intelligent air barrier, that certainly would assist with doing that. So potentially not just this system alone, but certainly more than happy for you to reach out and get in contact with myself or get in contact with Jesse, and we could certainly provide some more assistance about how we could incorporate the new Sculptform range as part of a passive house design.
Yeah, cool. I think the passive house stuff's pretty it's pretty interesting. It's becoming like I'm starting to see a little bit more about it. Do you have any thoughts regarding passive house, Jesse? Do you think it's the future of kind of facade design in Australia?
So passive house, I mean, yes, that's where we ultimately end up if you follow the building science through. You end up something that looks very similar to passive house. But as the building industry progresses, it's generally incremental steps, not step change. So the first step is making sure the building is watertight, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how kind of building designs change, especially as there's more regulatory oversight. It's probably for better or worse. Some people have their own opinions, but I mean, fire compliance, the oversight that's there is probably it's probably 10 years too late. It's something that we need. And I'm sure we're here in Australia, we're definitely behind Europe when it comes to this kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting watching us adapt over the next few years.
Yeah, for sure.
Just in terms of some other questions. So one of them was in relation to thermal expansion and have we allowed for thermal expansion in the design of the cladding boards? It's a yes, we have in essence, or thermal expansion happens across the length of the aluminium cladding board, and it's generally in the detail. You have to allow for it in the detail between each of the cladding boards. So without going into the numbers too specifically, if you're let's say you're in Perth and let's say it's extreme weather and there's a range of 0 degrees Celsius to 50 degrees Celsius, we generally allow for about 1 mil of expansion across 1 meter of board. And we can do an aluminium board up to 6 meters in length. And then generally there'll be some kind of inter-story connection detail between each of those boards as you work your way up across the facade. So you just need to make sure that you're allowing enough room for the expansion and contraction in that detail, which we need to allow for the air cavity, we need to allow about 10 mil of airflow in that detail already. So if we just add that in there as well on top of that, and then you encapsulate that design with some kind of flashing detail, there's enough room for thermal expansion without kind of detracting from the design intent at all. So that's definitely encapsulated. Those kind of things they're not necessarily related to, that's where it's important to use a proprietary system that's kind of been designed holistically. So it's not related to actually the product itself, but it's more the little design, like details. And that's what's important about taking a product from kind of good to great. If anyone here has read Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, that's definitely a great saying. In terms of questions, another one was, can our cladding boards be installed on a curved facade? And the answer is definitely yes. The radius that it can be achieved is dependent on a couple of different factors, including profile width. So I encourage anyone thinking about that to jump onto our website and just check that out. But we can definitely do that. We've got a track that does the bulk of the curving. And then the battens or the cladding boards will wrap around that track as well. Does anyone have any other questions at all that they'd like to answer? There's a couple of them there. Bill, you've asked a question as well, which we might we'll send you a written reply to your question after today's presentation as well. But if anyone doesn't have any other questions, just a couple of things. We'll send out a survey after this for the CPD questions. We'll also send out just a survey if you would like it. We can do some samples as well. And yeah, my contact details are on the next slide. If anyone has any questions or would like to speak to us directly, definitely let me know, or I can put you in touch with Jesse and Stuart, who are definitely experts in their field. Thanks for joining us today, guys. We appreciate it. And yeah, thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Blake.
Thanks, Blake. Thanks for having us. Thank you, everyone.